next up, we're going to be having a familiar face here on the builder stage, who is best known for founding the code-free startup, which he later sold in 2018. He created Give Local, a COVID response project that lets people buy digital cards to struggling local businesses, which was then acquired by USA Today within, if I have this right, 3 days of building. I had to check that a few times before saying it because I couldn't believe it myself. Brent is going to discuss strategies he's used to sell no-code products and how to quickly get traction and get in front of buyers in 4 stages. Plus, we're going to have a Q&A afterwards, so if you're a founder or someone who has a capital share in a no-code application, be sure to pay attention and post your questions in the chat. Brent, do I have you? Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Looking forward to your chat. Ben, take it away.
All right, fantastic. Well, yeah, so as was mentioned, I've been a long time builder in Bubble. And, when it comes to launching products, I've been working on things for quite a while, but have really started to get into the groove. And if you look at all of my launches here, this is my site, launchingmyself.com. I have plenty of failed products out here, failed things that just didn't go right, but I've been able to notch up a few successes. And I'm going to go over one of them today in more detail. And really, what I'm trying to get across in this talk is how you can kind of replicate things that, even if you're not necessarily responding to COVID-19 as a sort of project to help out, there are still a lot of things to take away when it comes to how to build something that gets a lot of traction. For me, selling a company after 4 days was a pretty wild experience, and I'll take you through that entire ride. And there were a ton of things learned and a ton of things that you can take away for your projects. So what happened? This was about March, April of this year. Everyone remembers, businesses started to shut down due to COVID-19. And the first thing that came to my mind with this problem was restaurants and bars started to shut down, and we started to see all of these different articles circulate Twitter, restaurant owners saying they weren't sure how long they would be able to survive. So this was probably about one weekend, I'd say maybe a Saturday morning. My friend Justin gave me a call and said, "Hey, is there anything that you think we could do to help out these restaurants and bars that are having all of these issues? Because obviously, overnight, most of their customers have disappeared." And the idea we first came up with was maybe we could find a way to have people support the restaurants, sending them money, GoFundMe pages, et cetera, et cetera. And just by browsing a few restaurant sites, we realized that a lot of them already had built-in online gift card links to buy gift cards for those sites. So the idea came like, let's just create a quick page to give people the idea of going to their local city, finding the restaurants that are there, and sending those gift cards, in an effort to fund those restaurants. So it was about Saturday morning, and this was, 3 days before we eventually sold this business, and it's pretty crazy to think about now. But what we ended up starting was this site called Give Local, and this is the actual Bubble page here for what the site looked like. And what was really, really key, and I think one of my first lessons here was in structuring this site in Bubble. We started out by just creating a very simple page that had, a very simple call to action: help save a local business, with the call to action, buy a gift card now. And then we created a list of different cities where you could buy gift cards for those restaurants. And we wanted to launch this site as quickly as possible. And again, when you are presented a problem that has, really wide-reaching effects like COVID-19 in this case, we wanted to figure out how can we support these businesses as quickly as possible and launch as quickly as possible. And this was a great lesson for me because I usually, like a lot of people, fall into that perfectionism trap, where I'm tweaking my app, making everything picture perfect. And then the weeks go by and all of a sudden I've lost a ton of momentum and I launch to crickets. So what really forced us here, this was day one of building this on a Saturday morning. We got my friend Justin and we were hopped on Zoom. We started building this thing out, and we wanted to figure out how can we get this launched quickly without a lot of content, because, we had both gone on to maybe 10 restaurant sites ourselves. And with going on to those restaurant sites, we maybe had about 20 gift cards on the site. So our key our key insight was we realized, what if we could just make a directory site that would allow other people to add their favorite restaurants? And so that was really kind of the key here that I'll just show you quickly in Bubble. Inside of our header, we created this add a restaurant button. And this was pretty much what was going to drive the majority of content on this site. So when a restaurant was added, we would show this little pop-up that would basically be called add a location, where someone could add their restaurant URL, the site to actually buy a gift card or phone number if they didn't have one, their physical address, which was hooked up to Google Maps, and their email address, and then a link to check if they own this restaurant. So this was pretty much the key insight, because if someone was able to add this and have it automatically show up on the website, that would start to generate content, and that would make our website basically be able to launch much, much faster. So here is the key thing on how this worked. So if we had someone submit a gift card and there was not yet a page for their city, we had it basically work so that in this workflow, it would create a new business, but it would also create a new city. And then it would navigate that person to that page for the city. So for example, if you went back to the homepage here, if they submitted a new city in, let's say, San Francisco, and San Francisco is not on the page yet, all of a sudden San Francisco would pop up with that view restaurants button, and that would take them to the parent group's URL name. So basically the San Francisco city name. So essentially what we did here is we just said, hey, let's just make a directory site and get the word out as quickly as possible. So that was on Saturday. We built this entire site, just a very, very simple bit of logic, very simple database. And then the very next day, we were like, okay, let's get the word out. So we had basically a two-pronged approach: Product Hunt, because I've known Product Hunt pretty well and had some successful launches on there, and Twitter, because I spend way too much time on Twitter, and there was a lot of conversation happening on Twitter about how to support local restaurants. So first, we started out by launching on Product Hunt, and it's crazy to think this was 7 months ago, but here it was. And again, super simple, help save a local business. And in the comments, we started to say, like, hey, buy a few gift cards and add if you can. And what we noticed is that when someone went to buy a gift card, they were trying to share automatically. And so that was kind of our next key insight, was how can we make sure that when someone has purchased a gift card, that we can actually make the viral effect happen. So when a gift card got bought, we would open up here the actual business, and then we just added these links: share on Twitter, share on Facebook, share via email. All of these lessons that I haven't really been that great at adding in the past, but we were kind of forced to because of the so fast moving nature of this situation. So we kind of added in that viral layer. So once your purchase is complete, help spread the word below. We started to see all of a sudden this spread all over the place, where people were buying these gift cards and they were sending traffic to the site. And all of a sudden we started to see, I think in the first day, this is Sunday, we launch on Product Hunt, and we start to get to a little bit of Twitter buzz, and then we start getting more and more cities on the platform. We start to see people that are, linking to us in comments like, hey, looks like Give Local is a solution for this. And so that was really crucial for us. We were the first ones to have this website up, again, because of Bubble. And because we responded to that sense of, hey, we need to respond now, we were able to kind of get in that conversation. So again, that takeaway there is, if there is that opportunity, you see a conversation coming out, and this, I see this all the time on my Twitter feed, not even related to COVID, but just in general, when it comes to people saying, hey, does anything like this exist? Is there a problem? If there's a problem to be solved, you could say, yes, I'm working on it. Boom, send the link, a couple days later, even if it's the most basic prototype. If you get a retweet or a reply from someone who has a large audience, that can give you a huge, huge boost early on. So kind of getting back to the trajectory here, and what really worked well for us was we had the attention all of a sudden. And because we had built in that content loop that allowed us to have other people, the more traffic we got, the more restaurants get added. That allowed us to get more and more steam as, the product hunt launch wore off. The next day came, it was Monday. The conversation on social media died down a bit. But because we had that loop, more and more people were starting to add restaurants. And what we saw that was kind of the really key here was people started to take ownership of these city pages. So, let's say the city page for Austin, it would have its own link. So givelocal.co, /Austin. All of a sudden, someone would be sharing that link saying, hey, I only see, 50 restaurants on here. Let's try to add 10 more. And they were tagging restaurants and people. And so what we saw is basically more and more restaurants were getting on board. And all we had to do was make sure that people could discover them. So we went in and we actually tweaked this repeating group on the homepage to do a search for cities. And we sorted by something that we called popularity, so that we'd have the most popular cities that had the most number of restaurants show up first. So in a sense, it kind of created more of an incentive for folks. The more restaurants they could get on the platform with gift cards, they would show up on the main page and drive even more traffic. So the takeaway there, again, kind of going back to getting, when you get this first bit of attention, how can you keep momentum going? And as you can kind of tell, as we're building up more and more gift cards on the site and restaurants, we're starting to get more attention from more people. So this is now day 3, which is when I'd say, we're seeing maybe about 1,000 businesses on the platform total. And we're also seeing folks, from all over the world say, hey, can I start to get this in my country? And we're saying, oh, wow, the support here is really, really growing. And then we start to get some really, really interesting emails, because we have a very small contact section on our page that, basically just goes right into our inbox. The first was an email from the folks who run Zeroqode, which is a very popular restaurant platform. They say, hey, what we do is we have a ton of restaurants in our system. How can we get the word out to them? We're like, great, let's get on a call. Let's partner up. And all of a sudden we had a partnership in the works. We asked them, how did you find out about us? And they said, hey, we saw in our Twitter feed a lot of this stuff happening, and everyone was linking to your site. So that's how we went on there and we contacted you. And then on Tuesday night, another email came in that was really interesting. And it was the CEO of Gannett, which is the parent company that owns USA Today. And he essentially said, hey, we're seeing a lot of interest in this gift card idea, and we found your site. So it has a lot of buzz on social media. Can you give us a call? So we said, hey, okay, great. Let's set up a call for the following morning. I'm thinking, another partnership opportunity. And this is where it comes back to urgency, getting something out first and getting traction. Because, I've only sold one business previous to this one, but this project, the conversation accelerated just at an absolute insane pace. So this is the Tuesday. This is Tuesday night. This email comes in Wednesday morning. This is now, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So Tuesday night, we have essentially a partnership offer. And then Wednesday morning, we ended up getting on the phone call with USA Today. They say, hey, we are building a site that's very similar to this, but you guys have such a head start and you have so many restaurants on the platform. Would you be opening to selling the business? And that was kind of crazy, because we were very upfront saying, we built this in the weekend. Are you sure you want to buy this? And they said, it's all about getting the most help to the most people as possible. And so essentially what we decided is, okay, great. If you guys can take this, and they had a plan to take over the site and basically send it out to all of their local newspapers. They have a huge newspaper network, the largest, I think, in the country, as well as obviously usatoday.com. They would be able to add way more restaurants to the platform than we ever could. So that was a pretty insane thing, probably an insane 24 hours as I've ever had, because, I'd say by noon that day, we had an acquisition offer signed, and we started transferring over the ownership of the site. The USA Today development team, they were already very familiar with Bubble, having used it in a previous project. So it was, as simple as, going into the collaboration side, adding them as the owners, transferring ownership, and they took it over. And so essentially, once we were able to sell this, and then see what would become of it, they basically gave us some insight onto their plan. Like, we're going to send this out, we're going to continue to evolve it, and change what was givelocal.co to what is now called Support Local, which is supportlocal.usatoday.com. And this is the site as it lives today. They've essentially updated the original design to kind of a nice V2 where you can still add a local business, find your city to get started. But you can see here that, the amount of cities that are now supported through, just a ton of different folks coming together to add businesses on the platform. It's pretty amazing to see, just like lots and lots and lots of cities around the country. And so, this was kind of a win-win for us because we were able to sell this project that we worked on over a weekend, and it all went to a really good cause. We made sure that, part of the proceeds went to going right back into supporting these local restaurants. And then obviously the product itself was now supported by a giant company, and they were able to make it better than we ever were able to make it, with, gift card links right here, map functionality, and they've added a lot more here, volunteering and being able to follow the reopening. So that was a pretty wild ride. And, I'd say since then, I've worked on a few more COVID relief projects that have had success, but not like this. This was definitely I think we said, it was a course record when it came to starting and selling a business. And again, the real takeaway for me here was, the ability to, first go ahead and just help when help is needed, right? It's like if you find a problem, just jump on that problem and try to solve it as quickly as possible. This is basically why no code is so great, and why the first thing that we did was we turned to Bubble, because taking a typical site that you can build in a weekend, if I had done this in Node.js or another framework, it would have taken a lot longer, and I probably would have gotten sucked into the the perfectionism thing. This logo here, funny side story, we purchased, I think, for $20 on one of those quick logo generator sites. And that's how fast we had to move. And so one thing going forward for my next projects is I really want to try to replicate, even when there is not a crisis. How can I still, how can I spend 1 hour on the logo versus, worrying about the logo and the domain for many days, and like being absolutely certain that things have to be pixel perfect. And that gets back to, the overall concept of launching fast, taking the ability to ride the wave when there are certain trends happening, and then obviously answering the call, and and being able to sell when things can be sold. So that's a little bit about kind of the Give Local journey, and I think when it comes to Bubble in general, the ability to build quickly is really what kind of allowed all this. And I'm happy to now answer any questions if people want to throw that into the chat, because there's everything from how we built it to how we negotiated to how we sold, and happy to answer things with any of that. So so let's take a look at any questions that we have. Let's see. How many followers did we have? Yes. We've heard so much about what you've built during the COVID area. Any ideas on what you plan to build in the future? Yeah. So when it comes to my next projects, the thing that I'm really excited about right now is how to build with Bubble and extend Bubble functionality with code. So I am a developer and also a no-code developer. And so essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out the best way to extend Bubble's functionality. So I'll be launching a few projects, and one actually in the next couple of weeks. But that is all I'll give the as far as a teaser is, and I'll be sharing this as well. Is just how can you take Bubble, and by using Bubble's API connector, how can you actually use some Node.js in the background to extend the functionality.
That's very cool, Brent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And sorry I wasn't on stage to ask you that question directly.
No worries.
We're a little bit busy here backstage, a lot going on.
I hear you.
So you were about to answer another question before I came in with that one. How many followers did you have before you launched this product and kind of had it go viral?
Yeah, so I'd say my largest following is on Twitter, but to be honest, my followers aren't that engaged because I haven't been tweeting too often. I'd say my audience is probably around 16,000 that I've kind of built up over the years, and that definitely helped. And I can kind of see the idea of yes, you might need to have a certain bit of following to kind of build this viral traction. But if you don't, what would I recommend? I'd recommend getting in front of someone who does. So one thing that I've seen a lot of success with, let's say someone who does have a large following, 100,000 people plus on Twitter, they tweet out, "Hey, I have this problem. Does anyone else see something like this?" If you're the first person to reply and you've got a great solution, that's a great way to get a retweet and to start to get your own buzz. So I'd say it definitely does help to have an audience, and I think it's really important to kind of share your work and build as you go. But if you don't, there are still ways you can take advantage just by being helpful, just by opening up to people who do have a larger following.
Now I know how to get Twitter famous really quick and how to sell a business in 3 days. Brent,
right.
I learned so much from you.
Amazing.
Just one other question that we have here. Just looking for it. And obviously you built this super quickly, but do you think that not having a mobile version, at least right away, made it more difficult to get growth? Obviously, there wasn't much difficulties with this project, but what about with future projects or past projects?
Yeah, so I'd say when it comes to mobile functionality, it's all about what your users really need to be able to do. So just using Bubble's responsive engine, I took 30-40 minutes on that initial day and just made sure that the site was usable on mobile. And even though it wasn't a native app, we didn't need it to be, because people were sharing this website, and especially on social media, if social is going to be one of your primary channels for getting traction, then you really need to make sure, a lot of people are using these things on your phone, that they can at least go to the website. So made sure that someone could go to the website, they could view the restaurants, they could click through to the links. And then obviously most restaurants already have mobile friendly websites. So that was a big help. In the future, other projects I've worked on, I'd say that, Bubble does have, some issues, with native functionality, and there are plenty of wrappers that kind of help other folks be able to add some native functionality there. But I'd say, if you're building a native first app, then you really need to figure out, like, why is this native first? Is this, something that relies on GPS or the compass, or is it something that I could get away with just a web wrapper and make it a mobile site? In this case, it was pretty straightforward, web first and then mobile web.
Sure, yeah, and responsive configuration and making sure that things are configured well for mobile is such a critical point when developing apps, especially these days. Especially out in China, so many of the apps and almost everything is done via mobile, and I think we're really going that way for the rest of the world. So, yeah, definitely a really important thing for all of us to keep in mind when developing Bubble apps these days. Brent, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much. It was so great to hear from you. Thank you for the panel. Thank you for the chat now. Big thank you for being with us here today.
Thanks so much for having me.